Welcome. I have with me today Maryann Baldwin. She is business owner, coach, and innovation leader at The Works in Lansing, Iowa. And Maryann's in our community manager program. And I can't remember why I stumbled. I think, you did your certification and I was on your website and I saw a blog post about your story. And I was like, we have to talk about this because I think the podcast listeners will enjoy this. We have a lot of folks who are very interested in small town co-working.
Mhm.
And okay, so you also have to verify how many people live in Lansing, Iowa.
Well, I rounded up to 1,000, but it's
Yes.
probably I think it's 968 or something like that.
Yes, I Googled and I was like, could this be right? I was like, it looks right. There's a lot of history with like a big decline somewhere. You had like a 13%
Yeah,
drop somewhere. Okay,
yeah.
so yeah, my guests always want a list of questions. And yesterday I was like, okay, Maryann, we're just gonna like talk about your life story and how this came to be. Okay, we're gonna start your life story with we went to the same undergrad.
Really?
Yes.
You're
I've
kidding?
never interviewed anybody who went to the same undergrad. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yes. I looked
So
at your LinkedIn because
at
whatever.
Ithaca College?
Yes.
You're kidding.
Isn't that funny?
That's
Yes, not at
awesome.
the
I
same
love
time. You were there a
Sure,
little
sure.
earlier than me.
Mhm.
Totally funny. So let's start with how did you end up at Ithaca
Wow.
College? Oh, wait, and do you know what I wanted to be when I grew up? This may not surprise you since I have a podcast, but I grew up in
Probably a news anchor. Yeah.
I grew up in a town about the size of Lansing, more cows than people. And, back then before the internet, not to date myself, but like you only knew what you were going to be when you grew up by looking like what's available, a
Sure.
fireman, a teacher,
Yep.
and I really like to talk. So I was like, I will be a news anchor. So
Very
although
cool.
ironically, I remember I went to orientation or some sort of preview thing. Maybe it was like a preview thing. So I never picked television radio as my major, which you did,
Okay.
because that preview thing I went to, this woman named Trisha Williamson, I remember her name to this day, and we became
Mhm.
friends actually. She made this giant impression on me, and she was a corporate communications major.
Okay.
And I was
Mhm.
like, oh, I could wear suits and talk in my suit. I remember this. I'd be like, oh, power suits. I'm going to wear a power suit. And so my
I love
major,
it.
I don't know if they had this when you were there. My major was corporate communication
Mhm.
and learning design or something like that. I
Sure.
mean, yeah.
Yeah.
So I didn't do it, but I had lots of friends in the TVR. Okay, so how
And
did
that's a
you?
well-known program too.
Right,
So
it's totally
yeah,
a
you
well-known
had a great
program.
reputation.
Okay, so
Yeah, for sure.
where did you grow up and how did you end up at Ithaca College?
So, well, where did you? So, did you grow up in New York State then, or?
Yes, in the middle of
Okay,
nowhere, like an hour and a half from Ithaca.
okay. Well, I grew up in Rochester, New York, one of the suburbs, Webster. Yeah.
Okay.
So that's how I knew about Ithaca College.
Okay,
But
yes. I grew up between Syracuse and Binghamton. I mean,
okay.
just in this teensy little place.
Hmm.
Okay,
Yep.
The Rock, but I know The Rock. Okay. Okay, so
Yeah.
you
So
went to
so the area where I live now actually reminds me a lot of the Finger Lakes area. So that's part of what I love about being here. So
Okay.
it's really
What did
nice.
you
But
think you were gonna be when you grew up?
well, so but it goes back to high school. The high school where I went, they actually received a grant in the 70s to, I'll date myself now, to create a closed circuit television system and a studio where the students could produce television content. And we actually, our homeroom actually took place between first and second periods so that the students could produce a morning newscast that we delivered to all the students throughout the school for like
That's
15
crazy.
minutes in between first and second period. Yeah. So that's where I got the TV bug. And so I was actually producing TV content when I was 16, 17 years old. It was super cool. Yeah. So, but I thought I was going to be on the air. And then I got there and I was TV radio right from the start.
Yeah.
And I saw, I call them kids, but the other students who were just naturals on camera. And
Super into it.
for me, the camera would come on, I'd be like, oh, I got to read that teleprompter. And there were people who were just incredibly natural with it and so talented. And so, but then I discovered all these things I could be doing behind the scenes. So I wound up going down the producer path instead of the on-air path, which was totally for my talents and my capabilities and my interests. It was just organizing everything, which really, thinking back that long ago, set me up well for being a community manager and having a
Totally.
co-working space because
Yeah.
you're just kind of producing live TV all the time.
Life is so interesting, isn't it? Like you
It
thought
is.
you were going to be on air, but also you never would have known about this producer role if you didn't
It's true.
start
Yeah,
in television radio, which is because of this high school grant. I mean, it's crazy.
I know.
I
I
often
know.
think so. My high school graduating class was like 65 kids,
Mhm.
and I have a middle schooler who hates school. And so we talk about, school a lot. And I also hated school. And similarly, not in school, but somehow the school was like, yeah, you should get out of here. And so for I don't know, a couple of years, I did it. I had an internship at the radio station in Cortland, which you would
Okay.
recognize.
Yep.
I would get up at like 4 a.m. and go. And I would do like the weather and we'd record advertisements and like on air. And
Mhm.
same thing, I was like, looking back, I'm like, that's a crazy cool experience.
Huge
Like,
opportunity. Yeah,
right.
for
Just
sure.
like your grant, like that
Mhm.
it's teeny little town, like, and it for sure shaped some of the things I do now, I think.
Mhm. Without a doubt.
Anyway,
Yep.
okay. So
Yeah.
then what did you do after college with your, yeah.
So
And where did you go? You didn't stay in Ithaca.
no, I did not stay in Ithaca. I actually got my first job back in Rochester at the ABC affiliate. I was an intern with a show used to be on TV called PM Magazine.
Nice.
And I had I needed 9 more credits to finish my major. And so I did that through the internship. And at the end of the summer, they had decided to launch a local morning television show. And I was hired part-time to be an assistant manager or assistant producer on the morning show. I know. So it was like, yeah. So that's what I say. I mean, I was very fortunate at the age of 16. I knew exactly what I wanted to do. And there was no doubt. There was just no question in my mind. So
I know, but then here you are. So yeah,
yeah,
give us the whole, walk us through your your life story and
Oh God,
we'll get to co-working.
this isn't a career podcast. This is about
No.
co-working.
People like,
I know.
people like, we won't, you don't have to do the long version,
Yeah.
but I'm interested.
Just incredible opportunities just kept coming to me. And I know part of it was being there and showing up and doing all the things and being curious and asking questions and learning and being willing to try new things. But I worked on that morning show for 2 years. And then the production manager from the TV station went to one of the other TV stations in the group, which is how you made your way up in your career as you met people. And then they got opportunities and hopefully they offered you opportunities. So he went to Green Bay, Wisconsin. So
okay, I saw Wisconsin. I think also on your LinkedIn, I was like, okay, how did this happen?
yeah. So
Oh my gosh.
So he went to Green Bay as program and promotion manager, and he wanted to hire an assistant, but he also had this plan to start a morning show. So I would get to be the producer of the morning show. So I just have to come do this like assistant job for
You have to live in Green Bay.
a couple years, and then and then on top of that, I didn't even know where it was. So. I looked at a map. I knew where Chicago was. It's like, okay, north of Chicago. Okay. And then I said,
So bad.
could I just like come visit for a couple of days just so I know where I'm going? Because I really want the job and the salary's right. So I was working, my first job, I was working 2 jobs. I was working this producer's job, but then I was also working full-time, or not full-time, part-time at the Limited at the shopping mall. So that's where I bought all my power suits. So I had a good wardrobe. So by moving to Green Bay, I could combine what I was making in those 2 jobs into one job. So it was, it was a no-brainer, except I had no idea where it was. So they flew me out. I spent a couple of days there and they wined and dined me and I went home.
And it must have been summer.
It was August. Yep.
Yeah.
Sure. For sure. Because yes, you're right. My first Christmas, I flew home and it was so cold that the fuel lines at O'Hare, because I had to change planes at O'Hare, the fuel lines were freezing up. They couldn't refuel the planes. And I must have sat in the airport for like 15 hours for my connection because it was so cold. So,
I mean, Rochester is not balmy in the winter, but
yeah. Oh, it's so much colder in the Midwest. So much colder. Yeah. So I did 4 years there. In that time, the station was sold to another company, and the company wasn't interested in having a morning talk show, and the program and promotion director wasn't interested in working for this new company. But the new company asked me if I'd like the job. So at 26 years old, I was a program and promotion director at an NBC affiliate in Green Bay, Wisconsin. So, which is pretty cool. So
yeah.
And from there, so when you're doing programming and promotion, you have a lot of people calling on you from the studios and from the network, and they want to make sure you're promoting their programs and you're running them the way they're supposed to run and this and that. So I got to know a lot of people at the studios, and a lot of people at the network. And for personal reasons, I decided I wanted to move to LA. So I just started working all my connections and finally went out there. Everybody just said, just get out here. Nobody's going to offer you a job. You just have to get out here. So,
just go.
So exactly.
Like, again, we're sort of pre-internet here. So it's not like
oh gosh,
FaceTiming.
Yes. And I was telling somebody about how I had to hand type my cover letters and resumes on a typewriter and make the U-matic 3/4-inch videotapes with the resume reel on it and make copies of it and mail them. Oh my God.
Yes.
Oh, it was so hard. But anyway, so I finally decided to move out there, and I got a job with a trade group that put on trade shows for marketing managers in television, and they needed a conference manager because their conference manager was leaving. So, okay, now you're producing a professional conference for 1,000 attendees from all over the country. For
wow.
So I did that, which again was just like live television. It was like 4 days of nonstop, different tracks for different topics, different speakers, keynotes, dinners, parties, whatever. So that was good. But in the process, I met somebody at Paramount who was looking to create a position to do station relations. And because I'd been a promotion manager and I knew what it was like to be on the other side of the equation, interviewed me and wound up hiring me for the job. So I wound up after that at Paramount for about 3 years doing station relations for them. So So now I was working with the TV stations, making sure they were promoting our television programs.
Got it. On the other side. Okay. And you're in LA, which is very glamorous.
And I'm in LA, I hated.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
I loved driving through the gates at the Paramount lot. And I love being amongst the sound stages and all the things that happened there. But between the traffic and the crowds and the expenses and the earthquakes.
Yeah, I know I would hate LA for sure. Yeah.
I gave it 4 solid years. But then I started putting feelers out. I had a client in Chicago who I talked to quite frequently. And I love Chicago. Boy, I'd love to work in Chicago someday. Well, lo and behold, about a year later, he gets a job with Tribune Entertainment, which is part of Tribune Company based in Chicago, and he needs a station relations manager, and he knows me from working with him. So I got out of LA and I got to Chicago. And I spent 7.5 years at Tribune Company, and I wound up working in digital media, and I wound up in Orlando working with Time Warner Cable's full service network doing interactive television content in 1994, which was ridiculous.
Wow, that's still pretty early.
It was very early.
Wow.
The internet was just starting to become something.
Totally. Yeah.
And this thing called a browser. What was the name of the first browser? I can't remember, but it had the little globe in the corner. And
wait, was it Netscape? Is that what you're thinking of?
No, I think it was before that even. But anyway, so Time Warner was putting $3,000 interactive TV set-top boxes in their customers' homes to test out interactive television content. So Tribune got a contract to do local content for this interactive television system that they put together. So we were doing local news. We were doing entertainment calendars for events and doing restaurant reviews and things like that. We had, we converted. So this was with the Orlando Sentinel. So we converted the classified listings into interactive content that could be viewed on a set-top box. Yes.
Wow.
It was an unbelievable opportunity. It was the coolest thing I ever could have imagined, and it was great.
Were you still in Chicago at that point, or were you?
Nope, I went down to Orlando for about 3 years.
Wow. Okay.
So that was a blast, but then the internet came along, and everybody saw how much less expensive. Well, everybody's going to buy their own computer, so we don't have to put set-top boxes in people's homes. So maybe the internet's the way to go. So that all kind of unwound, and I came back to Chicago, and I was working with a group that was trying to interconnect all of the Tribune Company's newsrooms in Chicago. So WGN TV, Chicagoland Television News Channel, Tribune newspaper, WGN Radio. We were going to create this database where all this content would be uploaded throughout the day, and then they could draw different assets from it to create their own content. And And then it got way too much technology for me. And I was flattered that they saw me as a person to do it, but I got too far away from the content piece of it and was too immersed in technology. And it's very cool. But so then this market research firm in the media industry called Frank Magid Associates, based in Iowa, came looking for someone to help them start their digital practice. So
okay. So this is how we get to Iowa.
this is how I get to Iowa again. So
specifically Lansing? Did you go?
So no, but it was in the Cedar Rapids area.
Okay.
Yep. And that was very cool. I had clients all over the country, so I was on the road all the time.
Okay.
Got to do it. We did primary market research. So we did custom studies to understand audiences, what they liked, what they didn't like, what could improve their content experience, better messaging, all kinds of things like that. But on the digital side, they were mainly TV and video up until that point. But then they saw what was coming with video, and then digital television, because all the television stations had to convert from analog to digital broadcasting, and then high definition television, and people adopting HDTVs, and what did that mean for content, and how would they feel if their 16:9 TV had a 4:3 video, all those things. So it was incredible. And then we built a place on the Mississippi River, and I fell in love with it here. We moved here full time, and then I said, I don't want to leave anymore. I don't want to get an airplane. I'm done, so I'm retiring. 35 years. There you go.
Buying a fitness center.
Well, so that was the thing. All I wanted to do was teach Pilates class. I wanted to teach mad Pilates. So
so somewhere along the way you fell in love with Pilates, and
I was at a resort, and I went to a Pilates class, and the woman who taught the class was like 80 years old, and she was just unbelievably fit. And I said, that's how I want to age. So I'm going to teach Pilates.
Okay. Can Lansing? So now we're in Lansing. You decided to be a business owner.
Well, I didn't. I just wanted to teach Pilates.
You wanted to teach. Okay. So
I approached the fitness center owner, and I said, "Could I teach Pilates at your fitness center?" And she said, "Sure." And then 2 weeks later, she called me back. She said, "How would you like to buy the fitness center?"
And you were like, "Why not?"
And I was still working at that point. So
okay.
I was just, I was figuring out how I was going to get the Pilates certification. So when retirement was, part of my life, I could start teaching. So she was very patient. She gave me like 6 months to decide. And so she wasn't in a big rush. She had some personal circumstances. She needed to sell it. So I had actually saved up some money because I was thinking I might go back to school and get a master's degree just because,
Yeah.
Because I needed something to do. So instead I used that money for the down payment, because the fitness center is in its own building, and so you buy the building, you buy the business.
Oh, interesting.
The
okay. And then you ended up selling it. Okay. So we'll fast forward to.
Yeah. But I sold it during COVID. So there's that.
Okay. And then along the way, there's a building on Main Street, and you're like, what's going to happen? This is in the blog post I read yesterday. What's going to happen to this building? Who's going to buy it? And then at some point, like lightning struck your car. And we're like, oh, it's me. Okay, so tell us about this.
So when I was traveling,
when
I was traveling, I did experience co-working. Facility. So that was my introduction to
co-working. Independent ones, or like a WeWork or a
there was. I was going to look it up last night. The first one I went to was one in Atlanta, and they have 4 or 5 locations, and it was gorgeous. And there were all these people like in these rooms meeting and talking.
Much vibe.
Cool things. And we held an innovation session in one of them, and it was just everybody
I bet it was
on
Rome.
fire, and it was Rome. You're right. It was Rome.
Yeah.
So I knew about co-working, and I thought it was pretty cool. It was my vibe. And then at some point along the line, I thought, kind of cool to maybe try co-working in a town like Lansing. But it was just a fleeting thought. I would see vacant buildings and think that could be interesting. And I wound up with the fitness center. So then, so now I'm selling the fitness center. So I love being a business owner in a small town. I'm involved with our Main Street program. I'm involved with our women's business group. And that was the part that hit me, was I'm not going to be a business owner here anymore. It's kind of a drag.
Like that part of my life will be, how am I going to fit that in?
Right. Yeah. I mean, I could still be part of it, but it would be different.
Yeah.
So this place closed in 2014. It was a restaurant for about 2.5 years. I don't know the circumstances, but the couple just one day closed the doors, took all the food out, and cleaned it up and left everything here. So for 7.5 years, the booths were set up, the linens were in storage, the dishes were on the shelves, the pots and pans were in the kitchen. It just sat here. So somebody came through once in a while and cleaned it, and right in the middle, right in the heart of town. So I called the real estate agent and I said, "Can I look?" I'd been in here, I'd eaten here, I had memories of what it looked like, but we went through. But it was dark. It was the previous owner had built all these really fancy booths and bars, and it
Wow.
was supposed to
In
look like Grants.
Lansing. I mean, I
Yeah,
can't tell you, maybe there's a diner in my hometown.
yeah.
Yeah.
No, it
Wow.
was nice, but like I said, it was just very dark. He had a postcard hanging on the bulletin board in the back of a picture of Grand Central Station. So that the restaurant was called Grand Central Station, and it was supposed to look kind of Victorian, kind of
Ah,
turn
okay.
of the century Grand Central
Yeah.
Station kind of things, but just dark. So, and that was the problem. That's why nobody wanted to buy it, because you're going to have to undo just unbelievable amount of woodworking that he did. He was a
Okay.
carpenter and a chef, and so he
Wow.
created his ambiance, and then he created his menu. Whoever came in here was going to have to spend several months undoing what was here, and that was, I think, what made me different in the grand scheme of things. Is I had the time, and I knew a contractor, and I brought him in here, and I said, "What do you think?" He said, "Yeah, we could do that." And I said, "Oh, that's dangerous. Are you sure?" So, so we spent the spring tearing things apart, and then July starting to put things back together. But two huge things happened. One was I discovered an organization called Rural Ideas Network based in Dubuque, and that's where the coaching comes in. So we'll hook back to that in a minute. But
Yeah.
anyway, I called them for free business coaching. And at the end of the conversation, the gentleman I was speaking to said, "Well, I think we should talk again because we're launching a rural co-working accelerator program." And I said, "What?"
Oh my gosh. The lightning is like,
No, another bolt of lightning.
wow.
And then he said, "And by the way, Iowa Economic Development has their innovation grants coming up, and that's the only grant that they do that is not just nonprofits. They also have for-profit businesses, and we could help you write that grant. It's due like May 15th, but if you get it, you can start spending the money June 1st," which was like in perfect alignment with my
Okay. Wow. How much was the
and
grant for?
it was the max was 20,000. I applied for 15,
Okay.
which was another. We don't have to get into that, but anyway, but it
How
was. I
much
mean,
did
it
it
was.
cost you to update the space? And was that out of your own pocket or
It was all out of my own pocket. Yeah,
okay.
I took the proceeds from the sale of the fitness center. I used some of it for the down payment to purchase this, which also, by the way, I bought in spring of 21 when interest rates were 3%. So
But did you
another.
buy the building?
Yeah.
Oh, so you own the building that your
I
space
do.
is in.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yep.
Okay.
Exactly. Yeah.
Very
So
cool.
that's why I was comfortable making the investment in
You
it.
got it. Okay,
It
good.
was
Yeah.
on my lights just went off again in the other room. And then the third piece was that our Main Street program was renting this cavernous space in this old building that had horrible heat and
Ah,
cooling, and was just. And so I approached them about their interest in renting one of my offices. So
I'm
all of those
right.
pieces were
Got
just
it. Okay.
fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah.
So they're like a cornerstone of what I have going here. So I was
Okay.
like, all right, I guess I'm doing this. Let's go. I'm gonna.
Okay.
So
Okay.
so we
And
opened October 1st of 21. This one.
of 21. Okay.
Yeah,
And you're
yeah,
kind of
yeah.
post-COVID at this point. Okay, got
Mhm.
it. So it's okay. Is the whole thing 2,400 square feet, including the kitchen, or is the kitchen
The footprint of the building is 2,400 square feet. Yep.
okay?
So gosh, I used to know those numbers, and I'm not sure. I would say the kitchen is probably about 20% of the footprint. I kept
Okay.
half the kitchen of the restaurant, and so that's why, I mean, having a commercial enterprise kitchen for rent, that doesn't have to be part of the business model, but
Yeah.
it didn't make sense to rip all that out. I had ventilation
Totally.
and fire suppression and all the equipment, and quite honestly, I think the equipment in the kitchen was worth what I paid when I bought the place. So
Totally.
all
Right.
by itself. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just another piece. So the goal here is to drive economic development, and when you're in a rural place like this, it's hard to find like-minded people who are trying to start businesses. And so, we're here to provide resources we're also here for remote workers and for visitors and for freelancers and, anybody who wants to use the space. But a big part of what motivates me to do this is, just like the fitness was about taking care of your body. To me,
Yeah.
entrepreneurship is caring for your mind, right? It's
Yep.
finding your talents and what sparks you, and helping you make it happen.
Okay,
And
so what does that look like? Yeah,
so
I mean, it's such a small how is that playing out?
yeah, it's it takes time, but I'm happy. I have 12 members right now, and I have all three of my offices are rented. So I mean, everything's happening the way it's supposed to.
Yeah.
People do rent my space for events, and I've done quite a bit of that this year. It's just it's a little bit of if you build it, they will come. I mean, I did break a rule by not doing market research when I decided to do this.
You're
Coming
like,
out of
I'm making it. It's
yeah,
people
I
will
mean,
come. I
out of I mean, out of 20 years of market research, yeah, but
Yeah.
how do you do a
Oh, right. That's
study?
your background, not even just as
But
like the right thing to do. It is
right, yeah.
interesting though, because is this a little bit of an iPhone thing? Like, do people even know they need it or want it? Like, do they
Mhm.
have to see it first to some extent? Yeah.
That was
Yeah.
one of my favorite things when we were under construction because we would have the doors open to the sidewalks. All these people would walk by, and it was another piece of it. Having the fitness center, I had the opportunity to meet literally hundreds of people in the community. So
Yeah.
I had a lot of strong connections from that
Yeah.
experience. That made a big difference too, and also my volunteering. But people would walk by, and it's like, "Come on in, you got to come see what we're doing." Because the whole front is windows, so I could see who was out there. And then they would say, "What is this?" And I would say, "Coworking." And about half the people would have a blank stare, and
Yeah.
about half the people would light up. It's like, "Oh, that's a great idea." So it was always interesting to see who knew about it and when it was new to people. So, and a lot of people in this area haven't worked the types of jobs that involve sitting at a desk and communicating and moving information around and organizing. And so, that kind of work is foreign to a lot of people too.
Yep.
But I love the visitor part of this. We're 2 blocks away from the Mississippi River, so people can come in here, set up, work for a few hours, walk to the end of Main Street, get on a boat, tool around the river for a couple hours, then get dropped off, come back here, do a conference call. I mean, it's right there. So, and we've got, all kinds of hiking trails and hunting and fishing and, all
Yeah.
things outdoors. So a lot of people come to town, and there's a lot of remote cabins, and they don't have
Good
good
internet. Yep.
internet, and they try to use their cellular service, and they can't get it to work very well. And so it's multiple, it's all the streams of revenue. It's the
Yeah.
memberships, it's the offices and the rentals, it's the kitchen, it's the
Yep.
visitors, it's the meeting space and event space. And my overhead, again, being able to buy this when rates were so low, my
Yeah.
overhead is really reasonable. So yeah.
So, okay, so the kitchen, do you have people who use it? Like that
I do,
was
yes. I had somebody pretty
Oh.
regularly in there. She and her sisters they were hoping to find a space to open a restaurant, and they got really close on a couple things, and it just didn't work out. So they're taking a break right now. I hope they start up again for the summer. But they were doing like pop-up carry out. So for Saturdays and Sundays, you place an order online and then come pick up food. And I've had some people do canning in there. I do have a new member. She just earned a certification in herbalism, and she's going to be doing botanical products. So she's going to be, doing her little apothecary thing in there. So I'm
Yeah.
excited about that. Another woman I work with who does lip balms and hand balms and foot balms, and her traffic is building up enough that she may need a larger scale for making those things. So there's lots of different ways that it can be put to work. So
Yeah. And I mean, I love that for a small town because to your point, even if you aren't full of knowledge workers, like people like that's a great economic development
mhm.
tool, right? That you have
Yep.
this space and so do you get to use your coaching? Like what do you have members what does that
Right.
look
So so that says the big benefit. Well, there are multiple benefits of being part of this Rural Ideas Network that I talked about before. So they provided all my technology. So my membership management, my website, my event calendars, ticket sales, my blog. I mean, everything you saw on my website, that's all provided it's on the Wix platform, and they created the framework for it. And they have there's probably 10 or 12 co-working spaces that are using
Huh.
yeah. So
It's a great website. And it's fun. I subscribed to your newsletter and I was like, oh, that, great.
yeah, the newsletter. I mean, it's really powerful.
Wow.
what they can do with what they've created that you can do. So they have 5 of their own co-working spaces, Dubuque and a few cities west of there.
Okay.
They're working with Chamber of Commerce in Carroll, Iowa. They're working with, I think the gentleman has an architecture firm in Illinois, but he had space and he wanted to open a co-working business there. So they work with him. So yeah, so they put this all together through government grants for economic development. So they can put together a group of coaches, business coaches. And so I went through their certification program. So my members qualified. That's of the amenities you see there. Many of them come through Rural Ideas Network, including the coaching. So the coaching is included in their memberships, but the coaches are paid separately out of an economic development grant. So that's, so we get compensated, but the members don't have to pay more than their membership. It's a
how is she putting coaching? There's
I know, right?
I was wondering about. That's super cool.
Yeah, it's very cool. So
I mean, it's a great. So it's not your grant specifically; it's their grant, but they like deploy it through you.
Yep.
So who pays for the co-working membership?
So the members pay for their memberships, and that revenue comes to me. So,
okay.
Yeah.
But they get the coaching as like a bonus, and so. Okay.
So there's also peer learning events. There's webinars. We're doing an economic development. Yeah.
Like, right. We talk a lot about how, that there are grants out there, but and also sometimes the heavy lift on the programming to keep to utilize the grants is like a heavy lift. So the fact that you get to do, but obviously it's your time and you're at a place in life where you're probably happy to do that. And you get
I
compensated.
love doing it. It's my favorite part of this. I mean, just helping people. They get stuck. They don't know where to go to next. They just need the affirmation. I'm doing the right thing and I'm going to get there. And the accountability is huge. So just to say, I love working with people on their business plans. And so just saying, okay, in the next 2 weeks, I'm going to write the next 2 sections of my business plan and then we're going to get together. But I know I have to have it ready because Maryann's going to want to look at it. So,
totally.
And we know we should be able to do that on our own, but
no, I have I have a coach, and the other day I was like, I don't know why I can't get this done by myself, but next Wednesday it's gonna be done for you.
Yep.
So are they mostly like kind of early state? Like they're
a lot of them are, yeah. I've got a couple of who are a little further and down their path, but it's mostly startups. So.
And are they mostly very local, or are they?
So the people I work with through my space are local. As a part of this larger network, I do conduct coaching on a remote basis. So I do get to meet people in other communities and help them with what they're doing. So
and it's also more reach for you. That's what when I was looking at your website, I'm like, this woman's amazing. I wonder how she kind of gets your reach a little further than your 1,000 locals.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and if you look at the entire, about 20-mile radius of the community, there's probably about 3,000 households. So, there's other areas to draw from. And we're in a fun situation too, because we're on the Iowa side, we're close to the Minnesota border. And then of course, Wisconsin's just right across the river. So we actually can serve people in 3 different states.
Oh, wow.
And that's helpful too, because each state has their own economic development resources, but then, finding one that can kind of cover all the bases, it's a little different too. So.
Interesting. Okay. And you have a partner?
Nope. Oh, well, in life, yes, I have a husband. Yes.
Okay. Where did you meet him? Green Bay, LA?
We met in Iowa, in Cedar Rapids, Cedar Rapids area. Yeah. We met at the firm. So that we worked at in market research. So he has a very different approach to retirement than I do. So
like more retiring, more
go out and fish and hang out, mow the lawn. And,
We met with our financial advisor recently, and my husband was like, what's the soonest I could stop working? And I was like, whatever he wants, it's fine. I'm going to work forever. Just put that in the numbers. Yeah,
absolutely. No, I need things to do. And this is and it's the other piece of having a business like this and the fitness center, they're honor system businesses. So I don't have to be here from 9 to 5 for the doors to be
that's
open.
a great point. I didn't even like the logistical. People always want to logistical questions about, okay. So you don't staff it full time.
I don't staff it full time, and that's why I felt comfortable having a business like this. So I can
Yeah.
go away for the
Your husband
weekend.
wants
I can
you to go fishing with him for the day.
right. Yeah. Yeah.
You could
So
go.
it's yep. So I am not I'm sure it would be fun to run a business like that, but that's not that doesn't fit with the
No,
lifestyle
it's
that I want.
perfect.
So
No, I love it. So, okay, so your members have like, how do they get into the space when you're not there?
so we have I think it's still a Schlag. No, it's a Yale lock. We have a Yale lock. Then the old one was Schlag. And this is again something else that Rural Ideas Network helps you with. They recommended a specific technology that they've been using for a while, but they're always researching. They found something that was better. They recommended it. So I got it all installed and it's fantastic. If somebody calls and they're in town and they need to get in here for a day pass for the day and I can't get here physically, I can create a code for them, remotely on my
Remotely.
phone.
Okay.
Yeah. And then I can see when people come and go. I have, obviously I have cameras in here, so I can always take a peek in here and, make sure something's not, table's not flipped
Yeah.
over or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. So just peace of mind to
Okay.
know that things are going well. And I live 6 miles away, so it's not,
Yeah.
not
And
a
then
big
you
deal to
just
say,
set,
"Get over
when
here."
you onboard a new member, you just set the expectation. Like, look, sometimes I'm here, sometimes I'm
Mhm.
not. You come
Yep.
in, do your thing. Okay. Who makes the coffee and how do you keep it clean?
Keurig.
Okay. Perfect.
So I have a nice little spinning rack of Keurig cups,
Yep.
and they make their way into the garbage when they're done. And I have, gotta wipe the counters down, and sometimes there's a couple mugs in the sink, and but
No big
yeah,
deal
I
though.
mean, it's a
Okay.
small price to pay to
For
take
the
the garbage
flexibility.
out and
Yep.
change the
Totally.
toilet paper. And I mean, it's again, it's not like some of these. I love listening to people who are in the large
Yeah.
operations, and they're so beautiful and they're so cool and there's so many dynamic things that are happening there.
Yeah.
But then it's like, okay, but then I'd have to have employees and
Right.
I have to
The
manage the employees
complexity
and
goes
train
way.
them. And
Yeah.
yeah,
Even
so
using a Keurig takes a lot of complexity totally out of the equation. I mean,
it is. It
yeah.
is. I
And
know it's
there,
not the sustainability favorite, but
oh, I know. Yes. Well,
but it's what
is there a
works
coffee
here.
shop
So.
on Main Street?
Yep, there's one about a block and a half away, and beautiful place. And I would say, and I've told the owners this too. People talk for years about Lansing needs a coffee shop. Lansing needs a coffee shop, and these two sisters opened this absolutely lovely place. The one sister does all the design and decor and planning. The other one is the chef and is a wonderful cook. And I honestly don't know if I would have done this if they hadn't opened their business here. I mean, their business kind of took everything up a couple steps in the community. And
And on Main
yeah.
Street, but that's
Yeah,
part of
yeah, in
the
our business
organization. Yeah.
district. Yeah, yeah. So I would absolutely say, and they're the ones who kind of drove the effort to create a women's business group in the community as well. So yeah, they've had a huge impact on the community. And I
Wow.
love supporting them and yeah,
Yeah.
do some fun things together.
Okay, very cool. Okay,
So,
so what advice would you give someone who's thinking about like small town? Do you break even? You're not losing
so
money.
I'm going to be profitable this year. So
Yes. All
yay!
right.
I mean, I'm not going to go out and buy a yacht, but
Yeah. Yep.
but yeah, no, I
Wow.
definitely, it definitely needs to be profitable. And I'm closing it. This is the last half of my third year. So I feel like I'm on the right track in terms of what's happening here. But advice that I would give people, I would say, for me, it's about being active in the community and it's about networking in person. And again, I don't know if I hadn't had the fitness center before, if I would have done this either, just having
Mhm.
the relationships that I was able to create in the community. I mean, I have like people who will be lifelong friends because of who I met in
Yeah.
that fitness center. So, that had a big impact on my decision to go this route too. But the best way to recruit people, set up tours, whatever, it's a lot of in person, which I enjoy. I mean,
Yeah.
that's part of why I did this because I like meeting new people and I love connecting people who share, similar mindsets or have similar visions for something.
Mhm.
I just, I'll talk to somebody and 6 months later, I'll talk to somebody else, say, you two need to get together and talk. Yeah. And that brings me more joy than anything else. So if two people can come together and, help each other's businesses or whatever it is they're trying to do, or simply just find enjoyment knowing
Yeah.
one another. I love doing that. So this is really a venue to do that. But yeah, the in person is huge. And the big challenge here is we don't have any dedicated media that I can turn to. If I do radio or newspaper, I'm covering, quite a large
Yep.
territory and not really targeted
Not very
specifically
efficient.
geographic. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, so I try to do my best to be as active as I can on social media, and I try to, encourage people to share
Yeah.
what I'm sharing. Uh, but yeah, the in-person is really big. The first person I met with when I decided to do this was the woman who runs our county economic development. I mean, I said, Val, I want to go to lunch. I have an idea. And I laid it all out. She's like, what can I do to help? So, but now I know the entire county. She knows I'm doing this. She talks to everybody in the county. She's going to
Yep.
help spread the word. And I'm in alignment with what she does in terms of
Yeah.
economic
Economic.
development and, bringing new business to the community. So yeah, she was the very first person that I talked to. So yeah, just a lot of networking and yeah, getting to know people, getting to know about what's important to people and what makes them tick, and then helping them grow that if that's what's interesting to them, if that's something they want to do. So it's really fun.
Is there anything that you've done that you would say, "Oh, I learned this and you should not do this"?
Hmm. I'm not big on regrets. If something doesn't go the way I hope, I just
You just roll through.
yeah. I mean, it's just not a good way to spend my energy.
It's totally not. You
It
might be an
doesn't change
Enneagram 3.
anything.
No, you don't,
It,
right.
it
No
doesn't change
ruminating,
anything.
no dwelling. Okay,
Yeah.
good. But also there's no big one. You own the building, sort of aligned with your goals. You knew a lot of people. Yeah, I think some of your to-dos, if you could reverse them and say,
Mhm.
you know, right, you wanna have
Yep.
those things in place.
Then the whole thing about creating content. So that's something I've tried to be a lot more mindful of this year, and I enjoy it. It's just hard to find the time to close the door and create something of good quality. So thank you for reading my blog.
I totally no,
And
I
thank
love
you
your
for
blog.
this is for me being asked to appear on a podcast that I listen to. I was like, oh my gosh, this is awesome. So I love to listen to podcasts, and yeah, just to be a guest on one that I find value from is very cool.
Yeah. Well, I get again, I'm glad I was kind of poking around and, looking for, "Oh, who's this? And where's Lansing?"
Yeah.
And then your story well, see, that's the thing, your content posts, I think I was trying to find the original one that I came across and I couldn't find it, but
Should be
yeah, so
there, but
your content, like, struck a chord, and I was like, "We should talk to Maryann. This is really interesting."
well, and
Um,
it's ironic too because I'd been talking to another woman who does marketing in another very small town called Cascade, Iowa, and I asked her to come up and talk about marketing to our women in business group. And how did I went? Oh, she sent out a note to all of her followers asking people to submit. She's going to do like Ask Me Anything
oh,
episodes.
yeah.
And so I asked a question about social media, and she said, well, why don't I'm going to pick you to be on the podcast. And I haven't talked to you in a while. Let's catch up, blah, blah, blah. And we got to talking, and she suggested, tell your story. So, that was,
Ooh.
yeah. So that was kind of interesting too, that
Yep.
I told my story, and now I'm sitting
Yes,
here
here you
talking to
are.
you. So.
Right. Well, my hypothesis is that there's a lot of folks who listen who try to figure out like, okay, is this something I can do? Is this right for me? And just like hearing other people's stories, like, oh, she
Mhm.
did it and she had this winding, like, how did she, come to do this? And how does it fit into her, your life and your why? And so I think it's helpful to tell the stories. Okay, one last question. You joined our community manager program.
Mhm.
What were you hoping to get out of it?
Well, again, I created a co-working business because I had been invigorated by being in co-working spaces, and I thought that I would enjoy creating that same sort of experience for other people, as well as the economic development impact and all of that. But I just read a lot. I just got out online and, just tried to connect with other people who had them. And then, of course, connecting with the Rural Ideas folks and their program was a huge piece
Yeah.
of it. But I thought, I don't have like a formal training and being a community manager, and I think I know what that involves, but I can always learn something new. And then I did. I learned a lot, and there's some pieces that don't necessarily connect with what I'm doing here on
Yeah.
this scale, but no, I just you can always be better at what you do, and I definitely came up with some new things that I should be thinking about taking care of. And actually I am talking to another organization that tried to open a co-working space at Chamber of Commerce, and still don't have a signed agreement, but I think I'm going to help them do some marketing and some programming and grow
Very
their
cool.
business. So I thought that would also be helpful, to say, hey, and I have the certification, right? So I take this seriously. I'm not just someone who,
Yeah.
threw a shingle out there and said, hey, let's do co-working.
Yeah. Very cool.
So, but yeah, I mean, I discovered your organization, very early on, and, my research, and listen to the podcast and read what I can. And my challenge is I want to sign up for everything, and then I don't have time to do it. So I finally saw the runway to, okay, I can carve out some time. I can watch these videos. I can take these quizzes. I can do the work. So that just came to the point where that runway was there, and it's time to do it. So I have a nifty little certificate that I can hang by my desk that says I'm a certified community manager, university graduate.
Totally. Good. Well, thank you for sharing your story and taking the time to do this. I'm excited to make this one live. I think people will really enjoy it, and I enjoyed it. So,
but we didn't get the part about how you went from Ithaca,
no, I know,
corporate communications.
I'll say that. Yeah,
everything co-working. So.
I know, life is fascinating. Yes, but that's the other thing. I just think people, it's like it's life. It's like you can put the puzzle pieces together, maybe looking back, but you never know what's next. So,
and that's, to me, that's one of the most exciting parts of life. But I enjoy change, and I know for some people change is incredibly intimidating. So
totally. Wait, have you ever taken the Enneagram?
I did. I think, I did
be a 3.
Yeah. I can't remember.
I also don't look back, don't regret things, and enjoy change. Love it. My husband, no. So it's like I always have to be really aware of like we're updating our kitchen, and he's all like emotional about the fact that we're changing the kitchen, and I'm like, let's move on. I mean, just little things like that.
Yeah,
it's very, but I find it really helps with interactions. But it is funny how. Anyway, personality.
You have to plant the little seed and just let it germinate, and then kind of come back to it and say,
patient. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and you'll get there eventually. It's just a longer path.
Yep, a longer journey.
So they do a nice job. So
awesome. Okay. All right. Thank you, Maryann.
Oh.